You present AB 953.
Absolutely, and I have some witnesses coming forward for this bill. Madam Chair and members, AB 953 pertains to the need for a new, reliable, investment-grade ridership study. This is dealing regarding high-speed rail authority. Please let me reassure you that it is not the intent of this bill to kill the high-speed rail in California. The intent is to ensure that if high-speed rail is going to be built, that it is done right, built on an accurate and reliable ridership study. Proposition 1A, which authorized $9.95 billion in bond funds for the construction of high-speed rail in California, conditioned the allocation, commitment, and expenditure of these funds only after submittal and approval of a funding plan. The funding plan is to include projected ridership and revenue estimates based on a ridership study. The current ridership study has been the subject of significant criticism, not only by the peer review committee established by Proposition 1A, but also by the most respected authority on the subject of ridership studies, the Berkeley Institute of Transportation Studies, ITS. ITS was created as an organized research unit in 1948 by the California legislature and has been long considered a legislative expert on transportation issues. And last year, the Senate Transportation and Housing Committee commissioned a study by ITS. The study, which was issued on June 30th, 2010, concluded that there are, quote, significant problems that render the key demand forecasting models unreliable for policy analysis, end quote. The study further concluded, quote, the combination of problems in the development phase and subsequent changes made to model parameters in validation phases implies that the forecast of high-speed rail demand and hence the profitability of the proposed high-speed rail system have very large error bounds. These bounds, which are not quantified by Cambridge systematics, may be large enough to include the possibility that California high-speed rail may achieve healthy profits and the possibility that it may incur significant revenue shortfalls. We believe that further work to both assess and reduce these bounds should be a high priority, end quote. The report stated as well that, quote, the authority must have demand and revenue forecasts that are reliable for policy and financial analysis. Without them, there is little basis for proceeding. We recommend that the authority work with the UC Berkeley and Cambridge systematics on an expedited basis to complete the analysis of the issues in the demand modeling, especially biases in model coefficients and the reliability of the estimates in order to develop estimates that are generally agreed to be the best that can be obtained, end quote. The bottom line is ITS from UC Berkeley believes that any reliable ridership study must be based on new data collection. To do anything else will result in garbage in, garbage out, no matter how many times you analyze the current inaccurate data. Members, a ridership study is crucial for numerous reasons. It will determine everything from the best routes to the frequency of trains and service and parking spaces. Ridership studies determine whether HSR, high-speed rail, will pay for itself, what the fare box revenues should be to recover costs, including loans. Ridership studies are also critical to giving confidence to the private sector and Wall Street, who will indeed demand a reliable investment-grade ridership study before considering or committing any private sector funding. Wall Street is acutely aware that the current ridership study by Cambridge systematics is critically flawed. Members, while I believe it is imprudent to spend any money on a project that is based on a flawed ridership study, it is not the intent of this bill to curtail what is already in progress. Hence, based on discussions with and concerns expressed by the committee staff and others, I would like to amend this bill to delete any further reference to the prohibition of the use of Prop 1A funds. I would like to strike lines 3, starting with notwithstanding, through lines 9, ending with the word methodology. This will ensure that the work in progress is not affected by this bill and federal funds are not at risk, while also ensuring that a reliable investment-grade ridership is secured for the future decisions made by the authority. With these changes, I ask for your support on this important measure. With me here today are Elizabeth Alexis, who is an expert in economics and very knowledgeable on ridership studies, as well as David Armenta, Mayor of the City of Pico Rivera, sponsors of the bill, and Ravi Mehta, also helping with the bill. Thank you. That's my opening presentation.
3 and 9? Through 9. Witnesses in support, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Alexis. I am a co-founder of CARD, which is a nonprofit, all-volunteer group set up to focus on process, not solutions for this project. We support the bill, especially the part about taking advantage of the skills and knowledge that the ITS represents. This is a unique opportunity that the legislature has. We agree with the section to strike any part of this bill that ties it to the funding, because this is not about whether you support high-speed rail or not. It's about whether policy should be guided by science or whether it should be guided by guns for hire. First, the ridership model matters. Gilroy's parking requirement of 6,000 spaces that was directly linked to this model led to a no confidence vote. It's not helping the project. The overemphasis on frequency and underemphasis on ease of getting to station means 2 stations will be built in San Francisco and 1 will be dropped in Los Angeles. This will hurt high-speed rail's profits. The ridership model is guiding multi-billion-dollar decisions. You want a good one. You want one that's open to the public. Guns for hire concept has issues. Most people, including legislators on both sides of the aisle, discount the findings. Everyone has assumed a private firm would come forward with its own model, but they have not. Cambridge had to indemnify the state for the mistakes in its model. This has put them in a position that they risk their firm's existence if they acknowledge any issue, as they have probably cost the state now tens of millions of dollars. This is leading to a situation where the state may now waste billions of dollars. The legislature needs someone working for the legislature. In Japan, where high-speed rail has been done successfully, it is a given that the government has a model, the train company has a model. It allows a healthy negotiation to go on about funding. It is better late than never. Many of the key decisions about capacity needs in Los Angeles and the Bay Area will not happen for a while. If you don't get started now, you'll never get to the point at which you have this model. The current model is fatally flawed. You have a handout at the back of which it shows the difference between how Californians actually travel and who Cambridge sampled for this study. They themselves then did a test to see whether this would be a problem. They failed the test, and then they just decided to ignore the results. This led to a series of cascading problems, not the least of which was the flaws in the current environmental review.
Thank you. It was a little over 2 minutes.
Okay, and I'll take any questions that people have about the model.
Okay, I appreciate that. Next witness in support.
Madam Chair and members, my name is David Armenta, Mayor of the City of Pico Rivera in Los Angeles County. Our city of approximately 65,000 residents is predominantly Hispanic with a per capita income of approximately $15,000, with more than 15% of the population living below the poverty line and about 18% unemployment. I am here today to urge you to support AB 953 as amended, because the decision being made by the High-Speed Rail Authority are going to have a significant impact on Pico Rivera and its residents. The authority has decided based on the flawed and unreliable ridership study prepared by Cambridge Systematics that the route for the Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor, as well as the Los Angeles to San Diego corridor, will run through the city, bisecting Pico Rivera into 3 parts. The proposed tracks will be built on a viaduct 30 feet high to approximately 60 feet high. The authority has been deaf to our concerns, citing the reliability of their flawed ridership study. We all know that a reliable ridership study is the foundation of a good transportation system. It is the very essence of which routes will be selected, how many trains are needed, the frequency of the trains, how many tracks are needed, as well as where and how many stations need to be built. A new ridership study will not hinder in any way affect what the authority is currently doing in the Central Valley, nor will it affect the federal funding that has been granted. However, a new ridership study will serve to enhance future planning and development of high-speed rail in California. Why would you be afraid to get a second opinion from world-renowned experts in transportation studies? Would you not get a second opinion if you're doing a major remodel to your home? Would you not get a second opinion if you were told your car needed major repair? Would you not get a second opinion if you had a serious medical problem? Do you want a new ridership study when you are being told by ITS, the authority's own peer review committee, and other experts that the current study is faultily flawed? The Berkeley Institute of Transportation is an arm of the legislature. If you have an independent, unbiased ridership study from them, it will either validate what we already have, or it will identify problems that exist, thus saving us from building in the wrong areas, building too little, too much, and costing the state billions of dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Other witnesses in support? Please state your name and affiliation.
Yes, thank you. Larry Klein, Palo Alto City Council member and chair of Palo Alto's Rail Committee.
Thank you. Are there other witnesses in support?
May I
Please
just say a few words?
No, we only have 2 witnesses in support, 2 in opposition. The remainder share their name and affiliation.
We're in
So your
support of AB
supporters.
953 as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Ravi Mehta, appearing on behalf of the cities of Atherton, Menlo Park, Pico Rivera, and Palo Alto, in support.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Prang, Assistant City Manager for the City of Pico Rivera, in support.
Richard Tomac, California Rail Foundation, in support.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Kathy Hamilton, board member of Community Coalition on High-Speed Rail. I'm in support.
Jenna Price for the Planning and Conservation League, in support.
Don Barnby, Menlo Park. Ridership is the key to everything. Let's learn the facts.
Thank you.
Jerry Carlson, representing the Town of Atherton City Council, in support.
James Jans, President of the Community Coalition on High-Speed Rail. We support this measure.
Holly Millar, San Francisco. I support this measure.
Are there witnesses in opposition? Please come forward. You make room at the table for...
Should I speak here or at the table?
Please, 2 witnesses in opposition at the table.
Madam Chair, Assembly members, my name is Mark Kyle, and with Operating Engineers Local Union Number 3, we represent approximately 28,000 workers here in Northern California, approximately 10,000 in construction. I'm here this afternoon to say that we're in opposition to this bill. We believe that it's redundant, that despite the proposed amendment striking the most onerous parts of the bill, it's unnecessary. While we believe that another ridership study would be useful, we believe tying it to the funding, tying it to the timing would detrimentally and adversely affect the workings of the authority and the board moving forward, and could potentially jeopardize federal funds, as well as a number of the timings on the environmental impact report. My understanding of why ITS, which had done a previous study, didn't do one on ridership numbers at the time, is that they lacked the adequate expertise to do so. So I guess they'd have to find somebody to do that. So we believe that's unnecessary. Why we would support another study, we think it should be done in support of and not as a possible obstacle to moving forward. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Daniel Kraus. I'm Executive Director with Californians for High-Speed Rail. We're a nonprofit grassroots group that our sole mission is to make sure this project is implemented in for the riders of the state of California who voted for this project. In terms of this bill, we oppose this bill strongly. Even with the proposed amendment, it's our feeling that the bill will still essentially kill the project in that they will not be able to get federal funding if the EIR is delayed. So that's a critical point that we need to consider. The bill states that they need to wait to complete environmental work until the new ridership study is done, which would be about a year and a half. So that would mean stimulus money, deadlines would pass, we would not be able to proceed with the project, so hence this bill could potentially lead to the ending of the project. We also view the ridership study debate as one of a debate amongst academics regarding methodology. The author of the ITS report actually said he was not concluding one way or the other whether that ridership would be lower or higher based on the Cambridge systematic study. It's more about a quibble about methodology. So I think this is more of making a mountain out of a molehill, essentially, in terms of debating whether the ridership study is accurate or not. We also are open to the idea of doing another ridership study in conjunction with an updated business plan. That does have merit, and we support that, but that should be done in a time frame that allows the project to move forward. As business plans will continue to be revised, you might want to continue to look at the ridership numbers based on how you're designing the system. California will definitely have high ridership in this. I mean, we have an ideal setup with large cities and growing cities in between. From Fresno, Bakersfield, they're going to continue to grow. We've got the Bay Area and also the LA. We're going to have high ridership all over the world. High-speed rail systems are performed extremely well in terms of ridership, and they're producing profits in terms of operations. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in opposition?
Patrick Henning on behalf of the California State Council of Labor is in opposition. I just wanted to correct the record, obviously, that University of California at Berkeley is not an arm of the legislature, as much as some may want that. But there are some other fine institutions that could possibly do the study. We'd like to see the process opened up to not just one singular.
Thank you. Opposition? State your name and affiliation, please.
Jaffer Rizvi with CalPERG.
Thank you. In opposition, please.
Mark Smith on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies, in opposition for the reasons previously stated.
Nick Cronowitz, Sacramento, California, for Californians for High-Speed Rail. We strongly oppose this bill.
Tim Smith, State Chairman, brother of the Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen Teamsters. We oppose this bill for the reasons so stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Galgiani.
First of all, I do want to make clear as the author of Prop 1A that this bill would stop $5.5 billion in funding to California. It would stop 110,000 jobs. Secondly, one of the witnesses raised the point that we would need a second opinion and that the authority is not getting any second opinions. That's not quite accurate. We actually have memorandums of understanding with 8 different countries that have built high-speed systems around the world, and we have more than 235 senior planners and managers that are advising the authority as they move forward. I want to convey my utmost, respect to those who are here from Palo Alto and Atherton and Menlo Park, and as I understand, Pico Rivera today, and I would pledge to work with you going forward with some of the issues that you have. But I would suggest that too much focus has been placed on ridership numbers without trying to work within communities to try to show the authority what could be viable paths for the project, what your exact concerns are, and what a wish list could be. The Budget Committee addressed the ridership numbers last year and made some requirements that are attached with funding going forward. So the ridership has been addressed. UC Berkeley and another entity is looking at some of the numbers. But I would suggest that in my own community, where we have received funding and where we have had problems, I have worked with the community in Merced County where we have our ag industry and our local elected officials all on the same page. I have also been working with the county to the south of me in Madera County, not in my district, but we have brought people together who have the understanding that this is not just black and white like Caltrans projects where engineers just make a decision and that's just it. We've had a back and forth where we've got buy-in, where the authority has been flexible, they've been nimble, they've been willing to look at all other alternatives, because again, we want community buy-in. I would suggest that what could be more productive is if we could work together with that kind of a mindset in mind. Another thing that I pointed out to the ag industry from Merced up and down to Bakersfield that I represent as the ag chair is that in Italy, they have used a program where it seems voluntary to those property owners who have been impacted, because they have brought coalitions together where they have worked and they have tried to find viable paths instead of just the authority moving forward and forcing upon property owners and communities what the pathway will be. Particularly in the Atherton-Menlo Park area, there are 3 points that I would want to please be sure to convey to you all, and that is, number one, for almost a year now, the plan has been to utilize the existing Caltrain corridor, because Bob Doty from the Caltrain system had secured permission from the FRA about a year ago to be able to share track and have temporal separations between freight train and high-speed rail, where freight would run from midnight to 5 a.m. so that they could share the track and not be required to use additional right-of-way that would upset those in the community. Secondly, when the High-Speed Rail Authority submitted their FRA application last year for funding, they revised it so that they weren't any longer asking for money funding from San Francisco all the way to San Jose in the first round of funding, but rather they split it up, as we had in the Central Valley, because we had problems going forward. And the money that they were asking for was from San Francisco to Burlingame, where there wasn't as much opposition and concern. And third, as the author, I want to be sure that people understand that the way we wrote the legislation was to allow the Altamont corridor to use a portion of the bond funds for the Altamont to be complementary to the Pacheco Pass. And also, there is nothing that would preclude the Altamont from having to go behind the Pacheco Pass. I know you have concerns about the desire to have cars taken off of your local highways, and that you feel that therefore the Altamont corridor would be a better use of the money. The way that I wrote the bill is, if there's a portion, a segment of Phase 2 that's ready to go before Phase 1, that segment in Phase 2, for example, the Altamont could use the funds before, for example, the Pacheco Pass. So I just wanted to be sure to share those thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galgiani. Seeing no other comments, would you like to? Oh, Mr. Jeffries, sorry.
I'll be quick. I think you testified on this. Just two questions. What's wrong with the existing demand study? I mean, what's the problem with that? And then two, how long would a new study take?
So what's wrong with the current model?
Yeah, I mean, where'd they go wrong? In brief. I don't need
it's brief. You should have a packet in front of you, and it's just a picture. So the picture says everything. There's some pie charts, the last 2 pages. Not that one, the other packet. Yeah, I know. So we've also just given you the survey that, this is the actual survey that people at airports in California in 2005 received, asking them whether they'd take the high-speed rail, and that's the basis of the current model. But if you look at the other packet, the last page are two pages with pie charts, and the Caltrain study shows how Californians currently travel, which is unfortunately by car in almost every mode. And the second pie chart shows how who Cambridge surveyed to see if they were interested in taking a train. And the unfortunate thing is that they mostly asked people who are currently on trains or on planes, who are the two groups most likely to take a high-speed rail train. And they ran into problems with it, and they spent the rest of the study, the rest of the 2 years, in a giant game of whack-a-mole trying to make it fit. And this led to a whole series of unintended consequences.
So basically what she just said is that the data that they collected was just bad data. So what Cambridge Systematics did is somebody else did the survey at a McDonald's or at an airport. Cambridge Systematics came in and took that data and then ran it through their models. And so the effect is garbage in, garbage out. So even if you continue to reanalyze it, no matter how many peer review committees you have, you're still going to analyze bad data. So the end result is still going to be bad. So that's why having a new ridership study is so critical if we want to either validate what's happened or if we want to find out what the real answer should be.
Yeah, and just to answer the second part of your question, my understanding from ITS is that a study would take between 12 and 18 months. So, you know, this is in comparison to the proposal to do this peer review process, which would have 6 to 8 meetings over 2 years, would basically be the remodel version, right? Or you could do the tear down and have it ready in less time and millions of dollars less.
I mean, I can't think of a more important issue for this committee and other committees in this building to be working on, where you have tens of billions of dollars at stake in data errors, well-intentioned, whatever, adversely impacting the outcomes, making bad decisions, bad assumptions. And I don't know if they're bad. I mean, I have to listen to the experts testify as to what's good and what's bad and try and make a decision. And we are in a position where this project is getting more and more controversial, more questions about the data, more questions about ridership, the true costs of the project. The discussion is now occurring about, well, what if we went back to the voters and said, let's take that $10 billion and reinvest it into rapid transit projects and other areas that are going to serve inner cities and move commuters around at a more efficient cost. I mean, there isn't anything much more important than this in the Transportation Committee because of its long-term impacts. And unfortunately, as you can see by the audience up here, not attracting a lot of attention when you're worrying about billions and billions of dollars. So I support what you're trying to do here. We should be guilty of second-guessing and asking more questions when we're talking a price tag this big.
That's right.
So I support your effort.
Would you like to close, Mr. Jones?
Yes, absolutely. When I got elected to come to the State Assembly, I did not come as a strong advocate to promote the high-speed rail, nor a strong advocate to kill the high-speed rail. As a matter of fact, I'm formulating my opinions about the high-speed rail as I serve here. But one thing as a representative of the state of California I am passionate about is making sure that we make well-informed decisions. As representatives and as folks that are as stewards of the purse strings of the state of California, entrusted with the voters to protect the Treasury, I believe that if we're going to move forward with the high-speed rail project, we should be moving forward on legitimate information, not illegitimate information, and there is significant doubt that the current information is legitimate. This item came to my attention through my service on the Budget Subcommittee working with transportation issues and learning that the High-Speed Rail Authority has been delinquent, denying, however you want to say, refusing to provide the proper information to this body that the proposition requires them to provide. And this is just one more tool for us as stewards of the Treasury of the state of California to require the high-speed rail to live up to its responsibility as written in the current proposition. So to address the issue of wanting to kill the project, that is not my desire. And as a result of conversations with the committee staff, indicating that the funding issue could have the potential of killing the project, that's why they asked for the amendment, and I'm willing to accept the amendment to remove that part of the bill so that we can move forward without killing the bill. A couple of things I want to clarify. The bill will not affect federal dollars or impact the Central Valley construction, and it will not slow down current progress. Now, what could slow down current progress is the LA Times today just released an article that congressional funding for high-speed rail across the country is in jeopardy, including California. So if we are going to move forward with this project, we need to move forward with legitimate information, and that's what this bill requires the high-speed rail to accomplish. With that, I would ask for aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. And I agree with Mr. Jeffries that It's unfortunate that we don't have more people here listening to better understand the challenges of high-speed rail. Unfortunately, I can't support your bill today, although I certainly agree with your concern and your sense of fiscal responsibility. Because as soon as I took over as chair of this committee, I began to understand that there are significant questions about the existing ridership numbers. But for me, I'm not convinced that starting from scratch is the best way to handle it. And I think that's possibly what Mr. Jeffries was trying to take in as well. I think that there are ways to work with the existing numbers to increase the certainty of some of the assumptions that were made based on those numbers. So what I intend to do is work with Assemblymember Gordon, and I believe, is that the committee you were referring to?
That's correct, yes.
And work with that budget subcommittee that oversees high-speed rail to see if it makes sense to require the authority to develop new revised information as we move forward on the budget. And that's what I intend to do.
Okay.
For that reason, I can't support your bill today. Is there no motion? No motion.
You don't have a motion? I'll go ahead and move it.
Call the roll, please.
It's going to be a quick roll.
Motions to pass as amended to appropriations. Lowenthal?
No.
Lowenthal, no. Jeffries?
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Ashajian? Blumenfield? Benia? Buchanan? Ing? Mitchell? Galgiani? Logue? Miller? Miller, aye. Norby? Miller, no. Miller, aye. Miller, aye. Thank you. Norby?
Sure.
Portantino? Solorio? It's 2-1.
2-1, it passes.
2-1.
It's on call.
It's on call. Thanks, Mr. Jones. I look forward to working with you. Really appreciate your concerns.
Thank you. Two things, if I may, Madam Chair. Again, would like to ask for reconsideration if at the end of the day wants to add on.
Absolutely.
And then one other thing is I would consider an amendment if it would help the chair, putting a deadline on a new study. It was brought up by testimony that it would take 12 to 18 months to accomplish that new study. If the chair would have a time frame in mind that would help you be comfortable with the bill, I'd be happy to consider that.
That would be part of the reconsideration,
Great.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you.